Hello, this is Romeo Cat Computers, and today I have the third episode of the 74LS calculator series. So most recently, I just finished assembling this 4-bit adder, which if you remember I said I had to build two. This is the first one I built. They're both essentially the same, they do the same things, and they're all wired the same. It's just they kind of use different colors of wires, so there's minor differences, but they do the same thing. Anyway, I wanted to test this, so I hooked it up to a display board and a switchboard, and it works fine, which is good. Then I thought, well, since I have all of these things handy, what if I can build a subtraction circuit just to test, make sure that also works too. And that uses the B-line inverter, which I talked about in the second episode. So here I have basically a rudimentary calculator. This is kind of what it's going to look like when it's done, but a bit more organized. And in fact, it's exactly this top part right here with the B-line inverter and the full adders and the LED outputs. Now, of course, as I mentioned, this is my final plan, but I only show 4 bits and the final one's going to be 8 bits. But if we're looking at how I originally designed it, I have fully completed this top area. Anyway, so if we turn it on, everything comes to life. Now I already have a few things typed in here, so it's already displaying an output. Anyway, so let me show you what I have hooked up so far. This is a switchboard. It's got my dip switches and it's got a power indicator and it's got a button, which I'll talk about the button later. Anyway, the switches, I'm just using them to put my values in. So this is kind of like the keyboard of your computer. Now the A line goes directly into the 4-bit adder without being touched. B-line, on the other hand, goes to the B-line inverter board, which then the output of that goes into the 4-bit adder. Now, as I discussed in the last video on how B-line inverter works, it'll invert a whole data bus if you tie the invert line high, but if you keep it low, then it will just pass things through. The operation of A minus B is essentially the same as doing A plus inverted B plus 1. So that's what the B-line inverter does. Now this button is hooked up to two things. It's hooked up to the inverse line of the B-line inverter, so that way I could push it and it will trigger it. And it's also hooked up to the carry-in of the 4-bit adder. And that's because if we look at the equation again, you need to do A plus inverse B plus that extra 1, and that extra 1 comes from forcing the carry-in high. So this button, when I push it, enables subtraction mode. And then here's the 4-bit adder. Again, I'm not really going to explain, it's the 4-bit adder. And then here's my LED output. It's basically the monitor of the computer. Alright, so let's do some math. And I apologize, it's going to be kind of hard to see these switches. They're kind of tiny, and all these wires are in the way. But anyway, let's just do something simple. 2 plus 2. And that's 4, because, that's the 4's place. And here you do 2 plus 3. And that makes 5. And yeah, so it's 4 bits. So you can essentially add anything up to 16. And because it has a carry out, you can really get 5 bits. So you could really get anything up to 31, but there will be 2 of these, so you'll be able to go up to 511. Anyway, so right now I'm doing 2 plus 3. Well, let's switch that around, so we're doing 3 plus 2. And of course I get the same thing. Now let's subtract 3 minus 2 by pushing this button. The 3 minus 2 is 1. Now you notice this top bit comes on. This is the carry out. You can ignore that. I can't exactly explain why this comes on every time I do a subtraction, but basically these 4 LEDs down here are your result. And 3 minus 2 is 1. Let's do something a bit more complicated. So here we have 6 minus 3. And if I subtract it, we get 3. 6 minus 3 is indeed 3. And that's the subtractor circuit. And then when I let go, now it's adding 6 plus 3, which is 9. Now I kind of wish I had like an actual on-off switch. I don't have any on hand, So the most convenient thing I could get was a button. But it's not like you're really going to be using this calculator seriously, so it's not really that big a deal. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, so I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you in the next one.